Ask the Mayor. Your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth, Bob Hedlund, questions about the town and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, Ask the Mayor with Bob Hedlund.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another exciting, action-packed episode of Ask the Mayor. I'm Jim Melody, your host, your citizen advocate, your citizen inquisitor, along with, as always, the mayor of the great town of the city of Weymouth, the town of Weymouth, the town of Weymouth.
The city known as the town of Weymouth.
The city known as Robert Hedlund. Bob, how are you today on the final days of summer?
Very good, Jim.
I know
the
you don't
leaves
like
will be falling off by the time this airs, but we are taping after Labor Day.
Personal note, today is my daughter Riley's 15th birthday. It's a big day at the Melody House, and I hope everybody has a great day when they're watching this show. Bob, I know you like to cut the jib-jab and get right into it. May I please, sir?
We do have a lot of questions.
Yeah, we do. It's awesome. Okay, here we go. Let's get right into it then. Bobby, this is regarding the town charter. Weymouth is approaching the 20-year anniversary of passing the charter that changed the town from selectman town meeting form of government to a mayor town council form of government. Boy, talk about apropos. After serving nearly 4 years of mayor, what do you feel are the current strengths of the charter? Number one. Number two is, do you feel that the charter has any weaknesses as currently written that you would change if you had the power to do so? And then finally, if so, what would those changes be? And that's from Russ Drysdale. I presume he's related to Mr. Drysdale from Beverly Hillbillies.
So, Mr. Drysdale, I know recently applied for a position on the Charter Review Committee, and I appointed him on that. So we appreciate the fact that he has chosen, even though he's my representative on the Charter Review Committee, excuse me.
Is that an appointed position, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Under the town charter, we have to do a review every so often, whatever the time was.
It's the 20-year anniversary of the passing of the charter. Is that when the
No, we have
review
to do
occurs?
it more periodically than that. But anyway, I'm glad that he's using this forum to ask me for my input as opposed to as one-on-one as my appointee on the committee. But anyway.
Well, I think it's interesting because I'm not, we're bobbing around the block. I'm not really familiar with the role of the charter.
Which is why I'm going to explain that.
Yeah, please
to you,
do.
yes.
Thank you. Excellent.
So we have to do the review periodically, and I'm blanking out if it was 5 years or if it's, I think it's 5 years. But anyway, I'm going to look like a fool if I have the wrong number. But anyway, we put our committee together, the council makes appointments, and we look for things that need to be updated, changed, revised in the charter. How do I feel it's worked? I think the Charter Commission, at the time that the voters approved the creation of the Charter Commission back in like 99.
Did we not have a charter prior to that?
No, every community has a charter that governs, it's say like what the Constitution is to the United States, Jim, the charter is to the community. And under our charter, we had a town form of government. So the charter review that was undertaken back in the late 90s determined that it was time to move to a city form of government. Thus, that was approved by the voters, and here we are, 20 years later. I think that the Charter Commission at that time that wrote the Charter Committee did an awesome job. It was a great committee, covered the whole range of political views in the town, conservative Republicans, liberal Democrats, everything in between. They did a great job, and they worked cooperatively very well. People thought there were probably going to be problems with that because of the makeup of the committee, but they worked very well.
Great to hear.
And they haven't had to do much revision to the charter since, and ours has worked out so well that we've been the model for a number of other communities. Recently, Framingham really used ours as a model, and they approved theirs. Braintree really kind of followed ours. Braintree did a few different tweaks to theirs, and I think ours has worked out better. I won't get into the specifics, but Joe Sullivan and I have had that discussion. There's some things in Braintree's that he'd like to change that are different from ours that I think have impeded Braintree a little bit. But anyway.
Strengths, their current strengths of the charter
well,
that you
the
like?
strength is just what I said. It's worked out tremendous. They did a great job. It hasn't required many revisions.
Weaknesses?
The weaknesses, that's interesting because WETC ran a Weymouth 400th committee event where we had all three mayors speak on this very issue, and I know you're going to rerun that at some point, Mary, right?
I'd love to see that.
Through 2022, up and through our 400th. It was interesting. I think all mayors, myself, Mayor Madden, Mayor Kay did a great job. And we really didn't have a lot of criticisms of the charter. I think Madden had something. Do you remember what Dave's critique was? And I know I agreed with what he said. I can't remember what it was. But there were very minor critiques that the mayors had. I think there was some jokes made about you know, the mayor's relationship with the school committee. It's interesting, in some communities, the mayor serves as chair of the school committee. In many other communities, the mayor serves on the school committee by virtue of his office.
Which is your role, correct? You serve
And then
on
in
the
some
committee?
communities, the mayor can have a surrogate, if you will, or a representative attend and serve on the committee. So it varies, varying degrees of involvement in the school committee from charter to charter, and I think Mayor Kay may have said something about that, but the
Well, I jumped in there,
criticisms
Bobby.
were
What's your
minimal.
role?
So it's
what is your role on the school committee, though? You're
I'm a
just a
member.
member,
I'm a
right?
member.
I just want to make that clear.
So
Sorry.
anyway, changes, I don't know, and that's what Russ's job is going to be, serving on this committee, to come to us with recommendations that they think that the charter could be improved. But thus far, it's worked phenomenally well, and it's served as a model for other communities. So,
Wow, sounds awesome. All right, well, you'll keep us updated, I'm sure, relative to the changes, so on and so forth. Bobby, this one is regarding the Columbian Square improvements, which have been many. Mayor Bob, I was on last year's Columbia Square committee. Plans were approved, yet I know that Union Point reneged on their financial support. I understand that the town is considering some improvements for Columbian Square. What are they, and when will they be completed? We need traffic control measures and improved crosswalks as soon as possible. Thanks from Jerry
this, I think,
Bober.
was answered in the last, this is a follow-up, I think. I think this may have been answered in the
touched
last
on it.
show. Yeah, so, well, maybe we didn't get to it. I think this had come in a while ago, but no, Union Point didn't renege, so to speak, the way that the whole project was to be funded. You got to remember that Columbian Square signalization's been on the table for decades, and decades and decades, and nobody's done anything. So when we came into office, we said, let's get a handle on this. There had been studies done in the past. We hired a consultant to update the studies, and the funding source that was available to us was from the developers at Union Point, based on MEPA requirements, the Mass Environmental Protection Act, the MEPA process. So we went to the developers, L-Star. We asked for an advance on the payment to do the design work. They gave us that, even though the timeline of the project didn't call for that. So they were cooperative on that. The MEPA requirements to make the upgrades are mitigation to the development. They're tied to the levels of development. Union Point hadn't hit that threshold, but they were working with us to let us get a head start on the lights and the signalization and the pedestrian improvements, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and safety improvements. Now, obviously, when L-Star bit the dust, that came to a screeching halt. So the funds are tied to the development timeline of the project. So we're hoping, now we've got the new master developer RFP going out. It's on the cusp of going out. Right now, I'll just use this opportunity to give a little update on that because it's tied to this. So we gave some input on the draft RFP for the new master developer. Those changes and suggestions that the town staff put together after vetting that RFP were incorporated. Right now, there's a little hang up with the SRA board and unions and Norfolk County Labor Council over project labor agreement language as to what stays in, and there had been some amendments made to that during L-Star's tenure, and there's a discussion whether those amendments stay in or stay out, and that's where we're at. But once that labor issue is resolved, that RFP goes out, and hopefully we see that project back on track. So Jerry, the town right now does not have the capital funds to do that, and nor would we want to spend the money on that when we know we're going to get the money as a result of development and how it's tied to under MEPA. So that's where that is. This gentleman has suggested some interim improvements. We held a staff meeting a week or so ago, week and a half ago, to look at his suggestions and some other ideas we had for some interim safety improvements, some of which will be incorporated, some that won't be, that would be duplicative in nature. So we are taking some of the advice he presented to us that will be incorporated into some interim improvements.
Two additional questions, Bob, then. So
From you or from him?
They're germane to the topic here. One from me, one's relative to him.
So this is you
what
using
you just
your
said.
citizen advocate.
No, I want to follow up on something you said. So the signalization has officially been approved then for that square? There will be lights that'll go in the middle of that square at some point?
We put
That is the
together
plan?
a working group made up. We've talked about this on the show before a lot. We put a working group together made up of merchants, made up of landlords, made up of residents and town officials, i.e., councilors, town staff. They came up with, and the consultant that was hired, Green International. I think it was Green. They were phenomenal. Or maybe it was Hill International. Excuse me. Green or Hill, one or the other.
Green Hill.
Jeff put a graphic up on that. I'm blanking out. But they came up with the consultant came up with 3 options. The working group came back and incorporated elements. We actually had a 4th option that was a result of the collaboration of that group that was almost universally accepted. We had one kind of holdout landlord down there that didn't want anything to happen, but basically we got consensus, which I didn't think was going to happen. I thought it was going to be like Bosnia with all kinds of different interests, but they came together and we got a pretty good plan. The merchants bought into, the councilors bought into, residents bought into, and we're eager to see something happen. I think Dave Madden may have said it. I don't want to out him, but I think he may have said it at the mayoral summit we had under the Weymouth 400. That was the one regret he had, that he didn't push forward on those improvements in Columbian Square. So,
But
I told him I'm going to have him there to flip the switch when we get the lights.
So signalization is coming.
That's what the consensus was. There were different options. Rotaries have been looked at, roundabouts have been looked at, various forms of signalization.
A dancing traffic cop maybe in the middle?
No. So what the work group came up with, they said, yep, it's time for signalization. Signalization can work there.
Okay, interesting. All right, my comment was, Bob, and I'm here to pop some champagne corks. I may be premature. As I drove through Union Point not so long ago, it looks like the Volkswagens have left the building. Is that fair to say?
I think that was fair to say in a previous edition. We talked about that. So you're being very duplicative.
I don't recall that, Jeff. If we did, please put me on the spot, because I got my eyes focused on that.
It came up before.
I think it was
Jeff
developing. It appears to be a final.
Okay, I appreciate you using your citizen advocate discretion here, but we do have a significant number of questions we want to get to.
That was good news.
Yeah.
Okay, moving forward. Regarding the billboard. Hi, Mayor Bob. How do you plan on addressing the issues with the new billboard on Route 3? There are many unhappy residents in town, and it has been highlighted in the Patriot Ledger and on the news. Amy Cabillion, thank you.
It was also highlighted at a council meeting last night that she participated in, and it was highlighted in a series of meetings that we've had with her and a number of other residents in the neighborhood. So she kind of knows the answer to this, I think.
How about telling the rest of us?
Well, you obviously haven't read those sources that she said. We're going to get you a subscription to the newspapers. If you're going to be the citizen advocate, you've got to be a little more well-versed.
I subscribe to 3.
Actually, maybe if you watch the show.
What show?
That's the way they all became the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch.
So I'm not going to get into detail on this because she knows the answer. But we went through a process during the rezoning 2 years ago into last year. We created the commercial corridor overlay and we created a billboard overlay. We have 3 zoned areas for billboards in the town. We had no interest in billboards until we were approached by a billboard broker that indicated that we could get the Route 18 billboard that's a problem for some residents down there addressed, light blocking technology, and have it slightly moved. As part of this deal, we could get the billboards removed on Route 3A, which has been a goal of the town for decades, as we all know, and significant amount of revenue for the town. And around this time, a very intrusive 40B development housing apartment project was proposed for Fennell Drive. As part of this deal, we were able to leverage the proponent of that because one of the zoned areas he controlled, and we agreed to permit 2 billboards and for all these other benefits of the town, but also to stave off that proposal adjacent to Gagnon Park and the West Street neighborhood, and developer agreed to work with us to secure about 30 to 40 acres of open space that will fold into Gagnon Park instead of having a high-rise apartment building in there, which would impact a whole series of neighborhoods. So that was vetted by community groups. We had, I don't know, 3 or 4 public meetings with community groups. There were multiple public meetings with the council. No objections raised. The state went through their review, permitted them. And then once the first billboard was up, neighbors across the highway felt impacts. And we've agreed with them that it does impact their neighborhood. And we didn't foresee it, the billboard company didn't foresee it, and the neighbors who received notification that this was happening didn't foresee it.
All light issues, is that primarily the issue?
Yeah. I mean, you can see it from the neighborhood, so they're upset, or some in the neighborhood are upset. So we've met with them a number of times. The problem we have is there are 2 permitted, there are 2 locations that are leased, one is built. So there's a whole series of legal agreements in place that govern the fact that the proponents, the broker, the advertising company, and the landlord have the rights to do that.
So the horse is out of the barn.
Yeah, the horse is out of the barn, so to speak, but we've been trying to work with them and come up with some solutions. We think the second billboard could have the same impact, so we've held off. Voluntarily, the proponent has held off while we work to get a waiver from the state to get an alternative location permitted for the second billboard, which is not intrusive. It works much better. It's better for all parties involved, but that doesn't address the existing billboard. So if we get the waiver on the third location, i.e. the second billboard, it gives us some flexibility. There's the possibility exists that that billboard can be relocated, the one that's up. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. Obviously, the private parties that legally have the right to that are going to have a say in that. But I don't know if there's any solution for that neighborhood that's going to make them completely happy. Right now, a couple of the people in that neighborhood's position is, I want it removed. And I don't have that power because it's permitted, it's legal, it exists, and 3 private entities have a right to it and some ownership stake in it.
Regarding the illumination, are there operating hours? Does it get shut off at midnight, or is it on,
It's been off.
Okay.
At significant loss to the billboard broker, they've just shut it off while we try to work through some of these issues.
But they keep it on all night? Is that the permit situation? It doesn't have to be shut off at midnight or 1 o'clock?
No, and when it was on, he was shutting it off, I think, at 7 o'clock. And then the another alternative is to put some additional light blocking technology on it that we thought was supposed to be on it in the beginning, but they're holding off on that until we can see what happens with the waiver on the additional billboard, which we expect some news on that real soon, probably by the time this thing airs.
Well, it sounds like we'll be revisiting this as well.
Yep.
Okay, let's keep moving on then. Bobby, this one's regarding the planned new Libby Park intersection. Dear Mayor, all of my neighbors have been asking what the situation is with the start of the intersection at Pleasant Street and Libby Parkway. We haven't heard much lately and are concerned about the impending traffic and when to expect it. Can you give us an update? Thanks in advance, Karen Graham.
Well, I know she participated in the community meeting that was held on this issue. This Libby Parkway Middle Street intersection improvement is being funded as mitigation for the Arbor Hill project. It was agreed on a decade or so ago. Being funded by Bristol Brothers because they have an interest up on the hill, and it's permitted, it's designed, and voila. I think the holdup right now, not holdup, but the issue right now is awaiting pole relocation from National Grid.
So it's coming, it's tough to put a timeline
once
on
the
it?
utility pole, well, no, it's imminent, but
Okay,
once the utility pole, it's funny how some of these questions come up, and then by the time Jeff gets done getting this up on the air,
It's resolved?
the issues are resolved. Last show you wrote, it's gone. Oh, the propane tanks, another National Grid issue. The propane tanks at Urgent MD. So once the poles are moved, they're ready to start work.
All right, well, we move fast around here in the town of Weymouth. You got to stay tuned and buy some newspapers apparently as well. Bobby, this one's regarding the Weymouth flag. And when it says Weymouth flag, that's incorrect. This is absolutely the most oft-asked question. Here we go. Hi, when are we going to get some competition in Weymouth for Comcast? Why don't we have Verizon Fios in town? Thank you, Bob Berman. Your turn.
This comes up like every day of my life. It's like Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day.
It's top of mind.
I know
with the
there's
citizens.
a graphic for you.
10 years. Can
No
I answer this?
other-
Because I
you know the
pay
answer
attention.
by now?
The answer is Sue Kay signed a new 10-year agreement in the final months of her tenure, shall we say? And I think we're 3.5 years in. Is that fair for me to say?
The end date of this contract is 2024, 2022.
2026, which would be 10 years on the dot. 26.
2026.
Yes.
2016 to 2026. Your first year in office, 2016.
So no other no other company wants to come in and wire communities and put the infrastructure in to be competitive.
And they couldn't if they wanted to. There's a 10-year deal on the table here, right?
No, there's not an exclusive. Someone else could
it's
come
not
in,
exclusive.
but they got to wire the town and put
Yeah,
their own
sure.
infrastructure in, and it's a rapidly changing industry with people cutting the cord. It's not being done anywhere.
One of the reasons why it keeps coming up is because I keep
And by the way,
complaining about Comcast too. Because
Let's
Comcast
not waste
is
any
top
more
nuts.
time on
I
this
agree.
question. We've answered it
That's
a
why it
thousand
comes
times.
up, though.
But I've had senior people from Verizon sitting at this very table, and they give an explanation why they want. It's similar to what we just told everyone.
Hey, as we make our way quickly through this episode, we want to remind everybody, as always, to send the questions in to askmayorbob@gmail.com, askmayorbob@gmail.com. And Bob, since you gestured towards our mascot, could you please explain to everybody what is the mascot of the day? What hat is that
Fall
mascot
football
wearing?
season, Weymouth Pop Warner, and it looks like it's resting on RFK's head.
And I was flipping through the Herald the other day, and there's 3 players from Weymouth High School that they highlighted as players to watch this year. So the Weymouth High School football team, I think, is supposed to be super strong too. All right, Bob, we're going to keep moving on. This one is entitled Weymouth Flag, but there's a question about the flag. Mayor Bob, why do we not sell a flag for the town of Weymouth like many other towns around us? A maroon background with the letter W in gold would be great. It could fly at all the sporting events and be sold there as well, and the proceeds can go towards something for the town. It would also be great to see these flags on the poles in different squares around town. Weymouth Pride, you brought it back. From Judy.
So the Weymouth
A souvenir flag, I imagine?
The Weymouth School store sells flags much like she describes. In fact, I saw one flying on a house today on Pleasant Street towards Jackson Square. It was a white background with a Wildcat logo superimposed over a W.
Well, sounds great.
So they are available. I've seen a few of them around town. I don't know if they have different color schemes as she would describe, but the school either currently or has recently been selling them, and I'm guessing that they probably still have them over there for sale.
Well, it'd be great to see more of them flying around
It
town
would be
for
great.
sure.
And maybe the publicity on the show will result in more of them being purchased, and the money does go to a good cause over at the school.
So head down to Weymouth High School where you can get that flag. It sounds great. Bob, we're going to keep moving on.
And I think that the 400th will be doing some similar kind of stuff to the 400th committee.
I bet.
So watch for that.
Okay, awesome. Greetings, Mayor Hedlund. I'm hoping that the business enterprise located at the entrance to Paul Revere Estates off the newly paved E Street would be reminded of the civic pride most Weymouth residents in business aspire to. The beautifully constructed rock wall that marks one portion of their property line at the entry point at Revere Estate is so obstructed with overgrowth and debris. An easy cure would be with hedge clippers. I'll watch to see if they get the memo. Keep up the good work, from Bill Gill. Do you know where he's referring to?
This is a little public shaming.
Well, apparently so. But talk about the Weymouth Pride becomes a theme. There's a theme here all of a sudden.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know what the status is over there in terms of any homeowners.
At Paul Revere Estates.
Any homeowners associations or what the status is over there. I think it's 99.99 sure it's private property that he describes. I know the location. I didn't know there was a sign there, probably because of the growth, like he says. So hopefully someone in that neighborhood that is watching this may, as a little project this fall or in the spring when we have our community cleanup day, maybe residents could dress that up a little bit. A nice example of what he talks about was the Idlewild Association coming to us, and I kicked in the signage, or we kicked in the signage. We had some mitigation money that was in the Mayor's Beautification Fund. We paid for a couple of Idlewild Association signs. They got neighbors to cooperate. They put them at the 2 entrances to Idlewild.
I've seen them. They look great.
They maintain them. They do a nice job. It's a nice little thing for the neighborhood. It gives them a little sense of neighborhood pride, and it'll be great if that happens over there.
Is there any extra money in that beautification fund for me to maybe get a makeover along the lines as one of your co-hosts?
I think we might have to float a bond.
Well, hopefully at Paul Revere Estates, the hedge clippers are coming. The hedge clippers are coming. All right, we'll stay tuned on that one, perhaps. Thank you, Bill Gill.
Do you know the location they talk about, Jim?
No way.
I think you grew up a stone's throw
From East Street?
Where'd you grow up?
East Street? East Street is where my best friend lives off of, isn't it?
What neighborhood? You were up off.
That I can answer. Priscilla Circle, right off of Academy Avenue.
Not too far from there.
Okay, well, you can take me for a
It's
tour
the old
someday.
sand pits.
Oh, that's Paul Revere Estates.
I believe so, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Did Paul Revere run through there on that famous night? Well, Bob, listen, certainly something that's top of mind. It was on the cover of the Weymouth News recently. The library project is big doings. Library project, I like the library layout, a bigger state-of-the-art library. Also, a baseball field, a basketball court, a children's playground, and ample parking. I'm hoping that you keep the park off to the side for leisurely recreation, picnics, good scenery, etc. The area is very green and has some huge old trees for shade. That would complete the whole community area nicely. Is that your intention? P.S. You are doing a fabulous job from Weymouth, and that's from Sue Torres. So what's your thoughts there as far as the old trees?
There's a very short answer to this question, but
Okay.
I'm going to give a little elongated answer because this morning I was touring Weston Park Apartments and the Metri project in the landing, right adjacent to where she describes. And in answer to her question, yes, how did she describe it? The park area off to the right
Well,
remains, yes.
it's very green, and there's some huge old trees for shade that would complete
Yeah.
the whole community area
That
nicely.
section-
So
that
you're not
section.
taking those trees down, I would imagine.
There was some tree removal over towards the library. There'll be some new plantings. We did save the big tree off on the Franklin Street side. That was in question, but we worked very hard to save that tree. It's the biggest tree on the site. That's getting preserved. She's going to like what happens down there. Everything's coming together nice down there between the library project. We're starting on the intersection work real soon. The Metri project, the Grata project are underway. I was on the roof today of the Grata project. That building is going to be phenomenal.
Awesome.
And it struck me that we have some negative people in this town that like to take to social media. It's hard to believe, but
I've heard rumors.
we have people that only comment when there's something negative to say, and they're questioning the concept of mixed-use buildings. And it's very interesting that I do think that the Katzen project in Braintree has given mixed use a bad name because that commercial element of that building, which we've talked about on the show before, is a joke. It's an afterthought. It was to call it a mixed use building, if you will. If you look at the design in DeLagis's, really the commercial part of that is preeminent. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to go on record. You can archive this, Jeffrey. The Grata project commercial component, which is 1,600 square feet. I know one of the potential tenants he's talking to now is going to be wildly successful. There's this beautiful veranda that overlooks the new park, the new library. The access is great, the visibility is great, and the amenities in it are going to be phenomenal. It's going to be a tremendous place to get a probably light fare to eat, a coffee, and sit out there and look at all that redevelopment that took place. That building is going to be leased out instantaneously, both residential and commercial. The residential views up there are stunning, overlooking the park. I was up there, as I said, today, and the Metri building probably isn't as, it's going to shape up okay, but it's probably not it's a tougher site. It's probably not as aesthetically pleasing from the outside, but he's going to have no problem bringing in some quality tenants, and we're working with him right now to see if under the zoning proposal he has for the ground floor commercial space fits. It's looking like it will. We're working very hard to make it happen, and he has a restaurant tenant that would just be phenomenal for that site. I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag. I don't want to jinx us, but
Are you the operator?
no, it's a type of fare that currently doesn't exist in Weymouth that I will be eating there frequently, though.
Sounds awesome. Well, listen, we need to conclude this episode of Ask the Mayor, and we want to remind everybody in closing to please keep the questions coming to askmayorbob@gmail.com. Bob, as we look to wrap up, any final thoughts as we segue out
Just
of
want
the
to
summertime?
add one thing to that last comment I made, because you probably have people say, what about the parking? Parking's not an issue with either one of those between the additional municipal spaces we've created and the on-site parking. Our parking ratios on the Weymouth side of the landing are significantly different than Braintree's parking ratios, where we actually
have accommodated.
are conscious about the need for parking, unlike what seemed to have occurred with the Katzen building. So
It's tight down there, no choice about it. Well, listen, once again to everybody, thanks for tuning in. Have a great end of summer, and stay tuned for...
Well, stay tuned for the next episode, because I understand we have some doozy questions coming up on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.
Well, that's
I
what
think
we
we
call
should
a
entitle
tease.
it the what was Nixon's quote? The nattering nabobs of negativity episode is the next edition of Ask the Mayor.
I thought it was you won't have old Dick to kick around anymore. I say stay tuned for McHale's Navy. Have a great day.
If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.